President Trump, as we all know, loves to beat up on fake news, dishonest media, and sometimes individual journalists by name. But what exactly did he gain at a Pennsylvania rally over the weekend by complaining that Chuck Todd is a sleeping son of a bitch? The sleeping part has to do with Sleepy Eyes, which is the president's nickname for Chuck Todd, who didn't respond directly, but he had a lot of people responding on his behalf, like Tom Brokaw, who tweeted at the president, really classy, explain that to your children. Conservative radio host Hugh Hewitt, also an MSNBC analyst, said Todd's a great reporter and that Trump only slams those he's afraid of. He should sit down with Chuck Todd on camera, not sling insults. So, you know, I think it's just beneath the presidency to use that kind of vulgarity, singling out an individual journalist. And let me make clear, you know, the president has been the target of all kinds of unfair coverage and commentary, and he has every right to push back. But just to do the insult route without explaining why it is that Chuck Todd is whatever he said he is, I think, you know, it excited the crowd. It undoubtedly excited his supporters at home, but it does nothing to expand his base among moderates and independents who maybe are lukewarm on the president and don't want to see him conducting himself that way. And the irony of picking out the moderator of Meet the Press is that, as I report in my book, Media Madness, you know, they actually have an off-camera relationship. President has invited Todd over to the White House for some off-the-record sessions. They usually start out with Trump yelling at Chuck and Chuck yelling back, and then they settle down and have a civil conversation. Chuck Todd also spoke to Politico, in which he said that Trump used to call him regularly back in 2011, trying to get him to take seriously the prospect that Donald Trump would run for president in 2012. And he said one time they were sitting around having these half-hour conversations with Savannah Guthrie, and he says he put Trump on mute and says, does he have any other thing to do beside call? So I'm not sure that that is the best way to go about criticizing the media. Now, the next morning, just before my show on Sunday, President went after Maggie Haberman, reporter for the New York Times, who probably knows and understands him better than any other political journalist because she covered him for years in New York. And he was taking issue with a story that she had co-authored in the Times about the White House said to be looking for a new lawyer to add to the team against the Robert Mueller investigation. He said, it's fake news to say that I was unhappy with my legal team, but the story didn't say that. It said that Ty Cobb, the senior lawyer, has told people he's expecting to leave in the not too distant future. And the president has kind of vacillated between being happy and unhappy or frustrated with Cobb's generally cooperative approach to the Mueller investigation. But the president didn't stop there. He called Maggie Haberman a Hillary flunky with no access. Now, the no access part is just demonstrably untrue. She's interviewed the president several times. One of those times he said, you know, in a joking tone, that you're like Hillary Clinton's PR person. You've been called that, he said. She said, yeah, mostly by you. In another interview, that was the one where he went off on Jeff Sessions on the record, was put on the record, saying it was unfair to him, the president, that Sessions took the job and then recused himself in the Russia investigation. So, you know, slapping back at Maggie Haberman, who he does talk to with some regularity. In fact, he called her to notify her when he decided to pull back the first Obamacare repeal bill. Again, this is Trump venting, taking slaps at the press, but when he singles out for ridicule or vulgarity journalists by name, I think it does less for his stature and maybe more for the stature of the journalists who are trying to report on him. Again, he can hit back at anybody he wants, but to do it in this fashion, I think, is a misstep.